Democracy is in retreat. Around the world, we are witnessing a steady erosion of democratic values and institutions. The Economist Intelligence Unit's Democracy Index paints a stark picture. Global democracy scores have plummeted to their lowest point in nearly 2 decades. Only a tiny fraction of the world's population, a mere 6.6%, enjoys the privileges of living in a full democracy. Meanwhile, the number of people living under authoritarian rule has surged, with 39.2% now subject to such regimes. This marks a significant increase from a decade ago, when there were 52 authoritarian regimes compared to 60 in 2024. This decline is not limited to developing nations. Established democracies are also showing signs of strain. The United States, once a beacon of democratic ideals, is now classified as a flawed democracy. Even France and South Korea, countries long considered models of democratic stability, have been downgraded from full to flawed democracies in recent years. This backsliding is a cause for serious concern, as it signals a broader shift away from democratic principles. The erosion of democracy is a complex phenomenon with deep historical roots. However, certain trends have accelerated its decline in recent years. One such trend is the rise of social media and its role in spreading disinformation and amplifying societal divisions. Another factor is the increasing polarization of political discourse, which makes it difficult for opposing sides to find common ground. These trends have created fertile ground for authoritarian leaders to exploit. The decline of democracy has profound implications for human rights, the rule of law, and global stability. As authoritarianism spreads, we can expect to see a rise in human rights abuses, a decline in press freedom, and an increase in political instability. Authoritarian regimes, though diverse in their ideologies and methods, often employ a common playbook to seize and maintain power. This playbook relies heavily on manipulation, control, and the suppression of dissent. One of the most effective tools in the authoritarian arsenal is propaganda and disinformation. By controlling the flow of information, these regimes can shape public opinion and discredit their opponents. State-controlled media outlets often spread biased or outright false information, while independent voices are silenced through censorship and intimidation. Surveillance is another hallmark of authoritarian rule. Governments use sophisticated technology to monitor citizens' communications, track their movements, and identify potential threats. This pervasive surveillance creates a climate of fear and discourages dissent. People are less likely to express their views or engage in political activity if they believe they are constantly being watched. Legal crackdowns on dissent are also common in authoritarian states. Governments enact laws that restrict freedom of speech, assembly, and association. These laws are often used to target journalists, activists, and political opponents. Elections, a cornerstone of democratic systems, are often manipulated or outright rigged in authoritarian states. Opposition parties may be banned, candidates may be arrested or intimidated, and votes may be tampered with. The goal is not to reflect the will of the people, but to maintain the grip on power. The appeal of authoritarian leaders, particularly in times of crisis or rapid societal change, is a complex phenomenon rooted in both individual psychology and broader social factors. From a psychological perspective, the authoritarian personality, characterized by a desire for order, conformity, and a strong aversion to ambiguity, plays a role. Individuals with this disposition are drawn to leaders who promise to restore order, enforce traditional values, and protect them from perceived threats. On a societal level, authoritarianism often gains traction in societies grappling with economic hardship, political instability, or a loss of national identity. In such environments, people yearn for a return to stability and security, even at the expense of their freedoms. Authoritarian leaders skillfully exploit these anxieties, presenting themselves as strong, decisive figures capable of solving complex problems and restoring a sense of order. They often scapegoat minority groups, external enemies, or the establishment to consolidate their power and deflect blame. The rise of social media has further amplified the appeal of authoritarianism. These platforms can be easily weaponized to spread propaganda, manipulate public opinion, and create echo chambers that reinforce existing biases. Moreover, the constant barrage of information, often negative and anxiety-provoking, can lead to a sense of information overload and a yearning for simple solutions, which authoritarian leaders readily offer. The allure of authoritarianism often fades as the true cost of such regimes becomes apparent. The promises of stability, prosperity, and national rejuvenation rarely materialize. Instead, authoritarianism typically leads to a host of negative consequences that affect all aspects of society. One of the most immediate consequences is the erosion of civil liberties. Freedom of speech, assembly, and the press are often the first casualties as authoritarian leaders seek to silence dissent and maintain their grip on power. Economically, authoritarianism can stifle innovation and entrepreneurship. The lack of accountability and the concentration of power in the hands of a few often lead to corruption, cronyism, and economic stagnation. Moreover, the suppression of dissent and the lack of a free press can hinder a government's ability to identify and address problems effectively. This can lead to poor policy decisions and a decline in the overall quality of governance. Internationally, authoritarian regimes often engage in aggressive foreign policies, seeking to expand their influence and challenge the existing world order. This can lead to increased global tensions and conflict. The rise of authoritarianism poses a significant threat to democracy and human rights worldwide. It is a trend that we must all be vigilant in resisting. The future of freedom and democracy depends on it.